They thought it was over. The Queen of Soul had passed. The tributes poured in. The world mourned. The headlines praised her. And her 4 sons began to prepare for a respectful farewell. Legally, emotionally, financially. But what they didn't know was that Aretha Franklin had one more twist waiting. Because nearly a year after her death, someone opened up an old couch in her Detroit home and found it. A spiral notebook, handwritten, scratched out. It was her will, and it didn't just change the distribution of her multimillion-dollar estate. Changed everything, because inside that couch wasn't just paper. It was the match that lit a firestorm between her sons. Brother against brother. Quiet resentment became open war. The money, it mattered, but the betrayal, that cut deeper. What did Aretha write? Why did she hide it? And how did this queen of music leave behind a legal and emotional disaster that's still burning to this day? The answer is heartbreak. And it starts with a woman who ruled the world, but never let anyone rule her. Aretha Franklin wasn't just famous. She was legendary, revered, a pillar of American music, a voice that could part oceans, and a woman whose very presence demanded respect. She was the voice of a generation, the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the winner of 18 Grammys, over 75 million records sold, Presidential Medal of Freedom, an icon not only in music, but in civil rights, Black excellence, and American culture. But for all her power on stage, off stage, Aretha was notoriously private, especially about money. She didn't trust easily. She didn't follow modern estate trends. She didn't hire big financial advisors to manage her future. And so, when she died in August 2018, everyone assumed she had passed without a will. No final document, no clear instructions, no legal paperwork dividing her estimated $80 million estate. Just 4 sons, Clarence, Edward, Keekaf, and Ted Jr., each with their own relationships to her, each expecting a process, something clean, something civil. But nothing about Aretha was ever ordinary. And deep inside her home in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, hidden where no one would think to look, was the secret that shattered everything. In May 2019, nearly a year after her passing, one of her nieces, tasked with helping organize the estate, was rifling through her Detroit home when she opened up an old couch. Inside, a spiral-bound notebook. The pages? Covered in Aretha's handwriting. Crossouts, arrows, rewritten lines, notes in the margins. It was chaotic, but unmistakably hers. And it wasn't just one will. It was 2. One dated 2010, the other dated 2014. Both declared as final, both radically different, and both immediately tore the family apart. First, there was confusion. Were these real? Why were they in the couch? Had she forgotten to submit them legally? Was she hiding them? Or had she known exactly what she was doing? Because here's where it gets messy. The 2010 will, more polished, favored Ted White Jr., Aretha's son from her first marriage. It named him executor and gave him the lion's share of her music royalties, properties, and financial control. But the 2014 will? That one flipped the script. Gone was Ted's leadership role. Instead, she named Keekaf, her youngest son and someone with a history of legal trouble, as the executor. She even changed who got what. Properties were reassigned, cars redistributed, dollar amounts shifted, and one granddaughter, who had previously been included, was completely crossed out. This wasn't just a change of heart. It was a message. And the moment those pages surfaced, the trust among her sons collapsed. Because now it wasn't just about grief, it was about power. And Aretha, even from the grave, had handed them a disaster. There was no clarity, no typed, notarized version, no lawyer present, just her handwriting, her wishes, her secrets. 2 sons believed one thing, 2 sons believed another, and suddenly, the Queen of Soul's legacy became the center of a brutal family war. Aretha Franklin had 4 sons. They stood side by side at her memorial, smiling for cameras, giving statements of unity. But when those two handwritten wills came to light, that illusion shattered, and so did the family. The 2010 will was clear. Ted White Jr., Aretha's second oldest son and the child of her first marriage, was to be the executor. He was responsible, respected, and closely tied to her professional life. He'd even toured with her band. But the 2014 will scrawled and stuffed into a couch, named Kecaf as her new choice for executor. Kecaf, her youngest son, had lived with Aretha at different times and was deeply trusted by her personally. But he'd also had public issues. In 2018, the same year Aretha passed, Kecaf was arrested and served jail time for a DUI. Ted and his legal team questioned Kecaf's fitness to manage an estate of that size and cultural importance. Kecaf, on the other hand, insisted the couch will reflected his mother's final, true wishes. The two wills had different instructions, different allocations, and now different armies behind each of them. The family split. In public, the sons tried to show solidarity. But in court, it was war. Ted's attorneys filed motions to invalidate the couch will, claiming it wasn't legally binding, wasn't witnessed, and raised questions about Aretha's mental state when she wrote it. Kecaf's team fired back, arguing that under Michigan law, handwritten wills, called holographic wills, could be valid, even without witnesses, as long as the handwriting could be verified and the intent was clear. To complicate matters, Aretha had a long-standing fear of lawyers and formal documentation. She'd even insisted on being paid in cash for performances. She didn't trust institutions. She kept everything close to her chest, her bank accounts, her contracts, and now her legacy. And that mistrust cost her family dearly. Inside the courtroom, the brothers' legal teams tore each other apart. Outside the courtroom, old wounds resurfaced. Edward, Aretha's third son, had struggled with his own issues and largely stayed quiet during the proceedings. Clarence, the eldest, was mentally incapacitated and did not participate. That left Ted and Kecaf, the two younger sons, to battle it out. And battle they did. Kecaf accused Ted of mismanaging estate affairs, including booking tribute shows and overseeing music licensing decisions without the consent of all heirs. Ted pushed back, saying he had stepped up to protect the estate and had only done what Aretha would have wanted. What no one said out loud was what everyone suspected. Someone may have known about the 2014 will long before it was discovered. Because here's where the whispers begin. According to sources close to the family, there were rumors that one of the sons, or someone close to them, knew about the couch documents but delayed revealing them. Was it to gain advantage? Was it to influence how the estate was initially structured? One line in the 2014 will added fuel to the fire. Aretha had crossed out her granddaughter's name, Victory, in a note beside a bequest. No explanation, just a line through her name. Family members were stunned. Some believed it was a mistake. Others said it was deliberate and meant something more. And in another section, she handwrote changes that dramatically reduced what certain heirs would receive, without reason. Felt personal. And when money, legacy, and honor are on the line, personal becomes lethal. In interviews, members of the extended Franklin family began quietly choosing sides. Some backed Ted, saying he had always been the level-headed one. Others supported Kecaf, claiming he was closest to Aretha emotionally. The sons stopped speaking. Communication broke down. Accusations flew. Statements were made to the press and then retracted. Behind closed doors, Aretha's home became a battleground. Not over love, over control. And the public watched, stunned, as the Queen of Soul's own children turned her memory into a legal brawl. But what no one expected was that the real battle was just beginning. Because it wasn't just about who ran the estate. It was about who controlled her name. The moment Aretha's estate began generating serious posthumous income, from streaming, reissues, tribute performances, and licensing deals, a second, more vicious layer emerged. Who profits, and who gets left out? The Queen of Soul's voice didn't die with her. Her catalog continued to earn millions. Tribute concerts, documentary deals, tribute albums, they were all in motion. But without a settled estate, No one could agree on how the money should be split. The estate's lawyers were billing hundreds of thousands. Court fees mounted. And the Franklin estate, once rumored to be worth $80 million, was slowly bleeding cash. Meanwhile, the brothers argued not just over royalties, but over how Aretha should be remembered. Ted wanted tighter control over licensing deals. He pushed for a more conservative use of her image. Kecaf, on the other hand, leaned toward broader commercial visibility, open to more projects, collaborations, and even a potential biopic. In 2021, Jennifer Hudson starred in Respect, the official Aretha Franklin biopic. Though the film was approved by Aretha before her passing, the estate, divided as it was, could barely agree on how to present their public support. Tensions flared. Even as the world honored Aretha, her family was unraveling behind the scenes. But the most explosive moment came in 2023. After years of legal delays, a jury was tasked with answering one question. Was the 2014 couch will valid? The ruling? Yes. The court declared the handwritten 2014 will found in Aretha Franklin's couch to be her official last testament. Kecaf was named executor. Ted was stripped of that role. The estate, now worth significantly less due to years of litigation, was officially in Kecaf's hands. And while that ended the court battle, it didn't heal the scars. Family insiders say Ted was devastated, not just by the ruling, but by the silence that followed. He had given his life to helping his mother manage her career. Now, his own brother had replaced him with the court's blessing. Worse still, no public reconciliation ever followed. The brothers remain estranged. The estate continues to operate, but under a cloud. And for fans of Aretha, the news was bittersweet. Yes, the mystery of the will was solved. But the damage? That couldn't be undone. Aretha Franklin had conquered the music industry. She had stood beside Martin Luther King Jr. She had sung for presidents. She had faced down adversity and reigned over a male-dominated industry with grace, fire, and brilliance. But in her final act, she left her family with a silence they couldn't bear. Because when she chose to hide her wishes, whether from fear, privacy, or pain, she also left her sons with a burden that broke them. She didn't trust outsiders. But in the end, it was her own family that turned on each other. After the ruling in 2023, the courtroom doors finally closed. But the tension didn't, because the fight over Aretha Franklin's estate wasn't just about money. It was about identity, legacy, and power. With Kecaf officially named executor, the estate took a new direction. New legal representatives, new strategy, and new plans to expand Aretha's posthumous brand. But that only raised more questions and reopened old wounds. Would her image be used in advertising? Who would sign off on biographical projects? Could the family even agree on how Aretha would want to be remembered? Behind the scenes, the rift between Ted and Kecaf only widened. And for fans who had adored Aretha for decades, the behind-the-scenes drama was painful to witness. This was a woman who had symbolized dignity, grace, strength, and now her children were entangled in battles over royalties, legal fees, and business decisions. There were whispers that some relatives had stopped speaking entirely. There were reports that other family members felt shut out of the process. And even now, as the estate begins to stabilize, Aretha's memory feels fractured. Because when a family turns on itself, the damage doesn't fade. It festers. And that's exactly what happened here. One piece of paper, one spiral notebook, one couch. That's all it took to split a family down the middle. Some say Aretha never intended for this to happen. That the wills were written in isolation, in emotional moments. That she'd always meant to finalize them, but simply ran out of time. Others say she knew what she was doing. That by hiding the will, by choosing not to involve lawyers, by changing her mind repeatedly, she created a puzzle she knew her sons would be forced to solve. After all, Aretha never liked giving up control. She ran her career her way. She ran her finances her way. She lived life on her terms. So why would her death be any different? But that independence came at a price. Because without clarity came chaos. Without direction came distrust. And without unity came betrayal. What should have been a celebration of a life well lived became a bitter, drawn-out battle over what she left behind. And for the fans? For the people who grew up on Respect, Natural Woman, and Chain of Fools? Felt like a betrayal too. Aretha was supposed to be different, above it, untouchable. But in the end, she was human, complicated, private, flawed, just like the rest of us. And maybe that's the most painful part of all. Because even queens leave messy legacies. And even the greatest voices can go quiet, leaving behind more questions than answers. So what do we take from this? That no matter how powerful a person becomes, it's the silence they leave behind that speaks the loudest. Aretha Franklin gave the world everything. Her music, her soul, her truth. But the one thing she never gave was a clear goodbye. And maybe, just maybe, that's why her final chapter hurt so much. Because when the Queen of Soul left the stage, her family didn't just lose a mother. They lost the one person who held them together. And in her absence, the cracks finally showed. For more of the latest news, check out this video.